Hello, everyone. Welcome to Charts Focus 1, where we teach you how to work hard and trade smart. In this video, I want to talk about China. Yes, the country that can sometimes be shrouded in mystery due to its governing body or state media. But thanks to that mystery, I want to talk about a certain implication or unsubstantiated theory that I have about China, specifically the private sector and its companies. So by now, you guys should all know the entire government debacle that is happening in China if you're involved in the stock market. So they have been cracking down on the private sector by fining them billions and billions of dollars, wiping out valuations of some private companies, and completely breaking up monopolies. In just the year 2021 alone, they fined a total of 23.6 billion Chinese yuan, which translates to 3.7 billion US dollars. The fines were big in 2020, but the total amount in 2021 was 50-fold of 2020's total amount in fines. Now, you guys also may know that most of China's internet companies have been greatly affected by this. Specifically, companies that you may have heard of in the stock market, like JD.com, Alibaba, Baidu, Tencent Holdings, Didi, and etc. Now, let me show you one of the 12 companies that were fined in just last year. So, as it says in the CNBC article, there were 12 companies, major tech companies, that were fined. And the market regulator of China, or the State Administration of Market Regulation, or SAMR, like I like to call it, SAMR, said in a statement on Friday that the companies include Baidu, Tencent, Didi, SoftBank, and etc. So companies were fined 500,000 yuan, Chinese yuan, or $77,000 in US dollars each, according to the statement. And the reason why they fined these companies was for monopolistic practices, right? So, these 12 companies obviously paid because it's relatively quote unquote low amount, right? Just $77,000, okay? But, with SAMR really bearing down on these companies, they just have to really realize that, they're going to have to, comply to these fines. Now, the SAMR has been scaldingly scrutinizing the business operations of every single one of these companies. But one major company was hit like no other. And that company was no other than Alibaba, the #1 Chinese e-commerce giant, the Amazon of China, founded by the amazing Jack Ma. So let's break down the timeline of what happened. So in late 2020, Chinese market regulators blocked the initial public offering of Ant Group. And this Ant Group was supposed to be public in Shanghai and Hong Kong. And this Ant Group was also an affiliate group of Alibaba, the main company. Now, this company focuses on finance technology, or fintech, as it's most likely called, or most commonly called as well. And surprisingly, this event alone pushed the narrative of what the government in China was doing to its private companies into mainstream news around the globe. But the most interesting thing that happened simultaneously was the founder and owner of Ant Group, Jack Ma, who went missing. Okay, so as this article says here, right, Alibaba shares really just crashed when China decided to stop the IPO of Ant Group, both in the Shanghai and Hong Kong stock markets. And, they flagged concerns with this company, right, back in late 2020. And Ant Group has been ordered by regulators to rectify its business to comply with Chinese rules, including setting up a financial holding company. Okay, so now how does this have to relate, right, with Jack Ma's disappearance? So he literally disappeared from the public's eye, and people began to fear for his safety and at one point his life, as Ma was a very outgoing and outspoken leader and CEO. Now, some of you guys may already assume, why they might be a problem. So here is what he allegedly said, right? So here's a BBC article, right? So according to this article, all right, the Alibaba founder had accused Chinese banks of operating with a pawn shop mentality. He had also claimed that the authorities were trying to use the way to manage a railway station to manage an airport when it came to regulating the new world of digital finance. And these statements angered the central banking establishment of China and reportedly reached the attention of President Xi Jinping. Okay, so, you guys can automatically assume why that's a huge problem to China's governing body. So Jack Ma went missing for an entire 3+ months before people saw him for the first time speaking at a public conference out of nowhere. So what really happened here? So first off, if the IPO of the Ant Group in Shanghai and Hong Kong have went through, that would have been the biggest IPO in history from a dual listing in separate stock markets. Now, this was that big red flag and concern for the Chinese market regulators, or SAMR. Now, a Chinese private company led by a big mouth CEO was looking to bring about more power for himself and his company, especially if this IPO went through. Now, of course, this is a big no-no for the narrative of China and its CCP, or Chinese Communist Party. Now, the Chinese government can't have its private sector gaining more power, especially financial power, political power, and social power, or etc., without going unchecked. It defeats their purpose of trying to forcibly create a unified nation of Chinese people under one government and one leader. Now, how do I know this? Well, currently, right now, the current quote-unquote president of China, Xi Jinping, as you guys can see right here, is looking to forcibly break the precedent of how long a leader can stay in the leadership position as the president of China. So why does this matter? Let's deviate from the tech sector for a minute. Now, if you know a little bit about communist history with human society, things have not gone well at all. So the utopia that communism touts has not been achievable because humans have their own unique individual will. This usually causes one person to rise to power and become a leader amongst quote-unquote equal individuals. And that person becomes power hungry and has the rest of those equal individuals work for that certain power hungry leader. Right? So all that work goes all the way up to that one single leader at the top. Now, that individual needs to make sure that the people have the same mindset and same thinking, specifically social and political belief, so that he or she stays in power. Because of that, individual freedom and will is violated. Unfortunately, that is already happening now in China. Actually, it has been happening for years. So, how has it been happening for years? Well, the one major issue that has been occurring for years is the social credit system of China that the Chinese Communist Party began in 2014. Now, in this Business Insider article, right, all these links are provided in the description box below, right? It says, China's social credit system ranks citizens and punishes them with throttled internet speeds and flight bans if the Communist Party deems them untrustworthy, right? So the credit system is going to be an integral part of the socialist economy and the Communist Party in China to make sure that everyone falls into one unified thinking and mentality under one leadership. Now, as stated in one of their government documents, they stated that, quote unquote, keeping trust is glorious and breaking trust is disgraceful. Now, you can already see how grim and uncanny that sounds just from a government and citizen relations standpoint. This credit system can limit one's individual freedom and will if they do something wrong in society, like having too much debt, not paying bills on time, or even just bad driving. Now, you can't even get lower internet speeds, specifically targeted at you, restricted travel, or even stopped from enrolling into schools for higher education and for better paying jobs. Now, the most current major issue takes us down deeper into the dystopian rabbit hole. It almost sounds like I'm reviewing an episode of Black Mirror, which is a show you can watch on Netflix. So recently, China has been increasing their surveillance on its citizens. Yes, surveillance. Now, with new AI technology and the string of CCTV cameras located throughout the country, they can track anyone and from anywhere without your knowledge. Now, you may be scratching your head. Wait a second, Andrew. CCTV systems are kind of prevalent in Asian countries like South Korea and, well, China. So why is this a big problem? Well, using this technology, they are garnering millions and millions of digital and biological data on people in order to increase what they call the quote unquote surveillance state of China. Now, I am not going to go in much on why this is a huge problem because the New York Times has a pretty solid 14+ minute video on what this surveillance state is like. Okay, so this is the video here, right? And this link will be provided down below in the description box, like with all the other links I have shown you so far. Right. So if you guys take a look right here, right, a New York Times analysis of over 100,000 government bidding documents found that China's ambition to collect digital and biological data from its citizens is more expansive and invasive than previously known. So this is entrenching more on individuals' freedom and will than just the social credit system. So with that information, let's come right back to that tech private sector. With all these advances by the Chinese Communist Party or CCP, it's a no-brainer that they also want to keep their burgeoning private sector in check. They can't have an opposition in their political agenda, especially like Jack Ma, who's very outspoken. And now, this is where my personal theory comes in. So put your tinfoil hats on, all right? Now, upon realizing that, right, the Chinese Communist Party decided to literally start controlling power, right, and the social figures and the ultra rich of China. And if you're wondering where I'm getting that from, well, just take a look at Jack Ma. He was a very outspoken leader, but he had to disappear for 3 months. And even after that, you don't see much about him in the public anymore. He's not really speaking at public events. He's not criticizing anyone in China. He's not trying to, give constructive criticism to government people, right, and etc. So they're literally controlling the ultra rich of China. So billionaires went from being in billionaire statuses to not being a billionaire overnight. and popular social media celebrities literally disappeared as their digital footprint just vanished without a trace. Specifically, celebrities or social media influencers that have criticized the China's government in the past. There was literally a purge that was happening right underneath our noses. Now, this is the first attack by the CCP to give out a warning to all these people, especially to the leaders and founders of Chinese-based e-commerce companies. This caused the share prices of such companies to tumble. Now, if you just simply take a look at the Chinese ADRs listed on the NYSE or New York Stock Exchange, you can clearly tell when they started this. But the harsh reality was that the CCP had control over the billionaires' fortunes. So even they didn't have their own freedom and will over their finances. So take a look at EDU or New Oriental Education and Technology Group, or even its peers, TAL or GOTU. So these are all, private educational kind of techie companies that are really becoming popular as China is very, very stringent on its education for its future, children, right? So these companies, okay, so if you take a look at EDU, have been completely hit with fines and regulatory crackdowns against them, right? I mean, this fall here is absolutely amazing, right? Since the start of 2021, right? With this big fall, right? This company, specifically EDU, had to do a 1-for-10 reverse stock split, right? And this happened pretty recently as well. So this company went to being a penny stock overnight, like literally, right? And so if you guys don't know what a 1-for-10 reverse stock split is, that usually means that for every 10 shares an investor might have, the investor will have one consolidated share with an increase in share price of that one share by 10 times, right? So obviously the value of the stock didn't change, at least not fundamentally, but with such a devastating shock, right? Like you guys can see here, to the stock price, the company decided to do a reverse stock split to bring back investor confidence in the company by trying to artificially raising their share price by doing a reverse stock split. Right? Obviously, it's not going to change the valuation of the company, but they have to bring some type of confidence back. Right? So there is a good article on the timelines of all these crackdowns that have been happening since late 2020. So this is the article here. Okay, it's right here. So it's provided by South China Morning Post or SCMP. And I will also link this in the description box below. And this is an interesting article that you might really want to read because it has some very good videos provided with the article to go along with what you're reading. So make sure you click on this link down below in the description box below. Now, what was the reason for doing all of this to their own Chinese companies? Now, if we were being logical, wouldn't the Chinese government want to support these companies and its growth? Right? I mean, that would make sense. But you should know by now that the Chinese government will never do that, especially when these companies were acting, quote unquote, out of line. Now, this is why the e-commerce sector was especially hit hard. These companies were conducting the usual big company monopolistic market practices. And in my view, this was a huge red flag for the Communist Party of China. Now, these big tech companies had the freedom and power to carry out such monopolistic practices where they can hinder the growth and market share of one other smaller e-commerce companies at their own will. What kind of influences can they have on their citizens? right? I would imagine things would be very bad politically if these big tech companies start to speak out against the Chinese government and party, especially about their governance of the country. So in order to never have to get to that point, the CCP started to punish these companies to the brink of bankruptcy. They had to make an example of these companies. I mean, just think about that, right? They were literally sacrificing their own private sector to make an example out of them. So if regular citizens see that these big companies are completely powerless to the hands of the government, they too will fall in line whenever they are told to. This will build artificial absolute trust, but artificial, in the government and not in the big tech companies and their respective powers. So this is the ultimate reality of China's big tech companies. They have an overarching government that has extended the scope of its power in order to bring about an unified China. The government did not care that they were crashing the stock prices of its tech companies. In the short term, crashing those prices was a shot at the tech companies and a warning sign to whoever tries to go against the government in the near term and long term future. So in short, if you want to conduct business in China, you have to fall in line and not criticize the government. And if China's private sector is going to shrink, China will be the one to shrink it and not a foreign power or the private sector itself. So you might be thinking now, wait a second, that sounds very egotistical. And that's a very big yes on your part. I talk about this ego that China has in another video, which will appear somewhere on this video from time to time on the top right of this video. So it's mostly to save face and avoid any type of international embarrassment or criticism and tout that the Chinese governance is superior. And so far, they've been making a really big noise that they have a really superior governing body, right? Because they are able to control these big tech companies and completely silence them, even if they have really large, social and political power, especially financially. So what's next? Logically speaking, the Chinese government can't seem like they're completely trying to crush the private sector and diminish Chinese innovation. So they recently began to announce that they will start to support these companies once again and eventually stop regulatory investigations. Now, to be honest, this is great planning and execution on their part. Why? Well, first off, they were the causes of the private sector crashing, but now they will turn themselves into the saviors of that specific private sector. So this even solidifies the artificial trust and power dynamic the Chinese government has between its private sector. So investor confidence will come back in and people will forget that China was the one that began to crack down on these companies. And this transition will allow stock prices to rise back up and people will be celebrating China's incredible strength, right? And superior leadership. Now, with some added on tinfoil waves, I can foresee China starting to change the narrative in order to make sure no one remembers that China was the one that started the tumultuous downfall of the powers in the private sector. They will start blaming foreign investors, right, for the loss in valuations and big downfalls in stock prices because they left. And they will say that the cause of the previous stock price crashes were due to these foreign investors selling and leaving the Chinese market by having no faith in the Chinese private sector or even just the Chinese government. Now, even if this is further from the truth, Chinese citizens and investors will start/have to agree with this. And this will additionally solidify the notion of the incredible strength, right, of China as they all begin to think that China's governing body was strong enough that it didn't need foreign help and foreign incentives to recover its private sector. This is why those impediments to freedom and individuality has been placed in China, like the social credit system and the surveillance state. Now, these two systems will never empower someone to disagree with the government and what it has to say. Thus, it creates unison in thought, opinion, and the way of life in China, as all live under one communist party with one socialist economy with one all-ruling leader, Xi Jinping. All right. That's it for the usages of our tinfoil hats. Let's take them off now. So, how could we take advantage of this? Well, if you guys remember, China has recently stated that they will want to start supporting these companies again. And if you take a look at the broader names like KWEB or Queb, or even Futu, right? You can clearly tell that the Chinese stocks have been seeing a rise in relative strength while other international markets continue to suffer. Now, retail investors and traders like us need to take advantage of the next 3 to 5 years of this potential private sector boom in China. Now, if you guys can, start to kind of assume what China is doing here, right? They're going to start comparing their own private sector to the international stock markets, right? Because right now, the Chinese markets have been doing extremely well for the past 2 or over 3 weeks, while all the international markets have been suffering. And they're going to start touting that, well, that their private sector is a lot better than the international markets, which kind of corroborates what I was saying before, that they don't need foreign investors or foreign incentives to recover their private sector, right? So if my personal implications are correct about China and what they could do in the near future, these stocks can give some amazing returns, especially if foreign investor confidence returns as well. All right, so that is all I have for you all today in this video. If you guys enjoyed this informational, thought-provoking video, please like, share, and subscribe, as that would encourage me to do more videos like this. Make sure you guys take a look at the description box below for all the links I've used for my suppositions so that you guys can deduce your own opinions. Remember, work hard and trade smart. I will catch you guys on another video. Have a great rest of your day.